A very warm welcome to all of you. We are truly excited about this session because it speaks to a question we hear from so many women in our community. What does it really take to pivot into private equity and enter this fast-growing multi-trillion-dollar industry? Women are leading across finance, yet when it comes to senior investing roles, the ladder still feels shorter than it should. The talent and ambition are already here, but the representation isn't. This session is our way of opening the door wider. We'll walk you through the private equity landscape today, the shifts shaping the industry, and the real pathways women can use to enter and grow in investing roles. And most importantly, what leadership can look like for women who want to build influence on the investment side with clarity and confidence. A quick introduction for all those who are new here. SHEROES is a platform built to enable women to build stronger, more financially secure lives. Through communities, networks, support, and learning pathways, we make career transitions and growth more accessible for women across industries. Alongside SHEROES is Mahila Money, our women-first financial platform that supports women entrepreneurs with credit access, digital tools, and financial confidence. Together, we are committed to building opportunities for women's economic advancement at scale. To help fuel your dreams and supercharge your aspirations, get financing from Mahila Money. You can download the Mahila Money app or email at customercare@mahila.money. Now, today we are thrilled to partner with Inflection Point Intelligence, or IPI. IPI has built world-class learning pathways in private equity, hedge funds, and family office careers. They train finance professionals across continents and support them with structured learning and career placement. You'll hear more about the PE learning pathway later in this session. We are joined by three incredible professionals who've led teams, built funds, and shaped finance across global markets. First, we welcome Anna Stephenson. Anna is the co-founder and managing director at IPI. She's held leadership roles across London, New York, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and brings deep experience across consulting and the C-suite. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks so much for that kind introduction, Sushmita. It's a real pleasure to be here with the SHEROES network and have so many attendees on this webinar. So let me start by just adding a little colour on our three backgrounds, and then we can get into the detail of careers in private equity. So as you heard, I'm Anna Stephenson, co-founder of Inflection Point Intelligence, along with Steve. I began my career as a management consultant in the insurance industry in London. And since then, I've moved around a lot, worked in equity derivatives, in custody and clearing, and in private funds administration. And I've lived and worked in multiple different cultures, including New York, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. And since 2016, I've been running IPI, our asset management education business. Steve has over 4 decades experience in the financial services industry, having started as an intern for Michael Bloomberg, the Bloomberg, on Wall Street in bond sales, and ended up in private equity in Tokyo via capital markets and wealth management in Hong Kong. And we are thrilled to be joined by Uni Choi, whose career has taken her from equity research on the buy side via portfolio management in a family office to co-founder and head of investments at Terratai, which is a leading venture builder focused on nature-based solutions, and it provides early stage financing and company building services. So right in the sweet spot for this conversation. And we're very jealous because she is based in Bali. So Uni's going to talk to us about important moments in her career, informed by her experience as a woman in this male-dominated industry. So between us, we have a wide range of interesting financial career and country moves, and plenty of insights to share with you. So I'm going to hand over now to Steve, and Steve's going to talk to you about careers in private equity. So over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time. So I want to start off with a little story because and Anna, I don't even know if you know this full story, but if it wasn't for a woman, I would not have been in finance or got, any sort of level of success in finance. Because when I started, I was an intern, as Anna mentioned, for Solomon Brothers, which became part of Citigroup, Citibank, as a lot of people would know, in India. And I got a full-time job there, and they gave me 1 week probation. And they said, this was on the bond sales desk as an assistant. And they said, you have 1 week probation. If you do well, you'll stay. Otherwise, you're gone. And I didn't know anything, literally. And the woman next to me, who was in that job for a year or two, leaned over, and basically I wouldn't have got through the first week without her. Without her, I don't think I'd be in this business, because I passed the first week, passed probation, and then I stayed at the firm 22 years. And later on, many years later, I got to thank her in person again, which she barely remembered, but it was a very important moment for me. So I think it's, I owe my career to the women out there. So thank you. I want to go through why Anna and I set up the private equity course, along with other courses, hedge funds and family office, because we worked together at Citigroup. We worked together for many, many years. And what we found was that a lot of people understand the job that they're in, but they don't really understand how it all fits together. So, for example, in private equity, you may have a lawyer that's putting together the documents. They're putting together the subscription documents or the prospectus on the transactions, things like that, but they don't understand risk. And the people who understand risk don't understand how to raise money or capital. And we felt there was a real lack of broad knowledge. And when we were trying to hire people to work with us, we felt like people didn't really have a good cross-section of knowledge that they can contribute to the job. So that's the reason IPI got started. And luckily, we've helped many people over the years. So I want to talk about how you can build a career and have a career in private equity, and then I'll give it back to Anna, and then Uni after that. The private equity business is exploding in opportunity. I'm based in Tokyo, Japan now. I'm responsible at Lone Star Funds, which is private equity, for operations and administration in Asia. And in India, India plays a huge part in the infrastructure of private equity. There's over 100 private equity and hedge funds operation centers in India. There's the 60% of private equity funds outsource their back office. And of that, 50% is based in India. So India has a huge component, a huge important responsibility to make sure that all the numbers are correct, to do the administration, the accounting. And that's the backbone of everything we do in private equity. And for those of you who don't have a great background about it, private equity is just private investment in companies. This is private. It's not on the stock exchange like in India or Hong Kong or New York. These are companies that are bought and sold privately. That's why it's called private equity. And private equity, you may know some of the big players, Blackstone, KKR, and Lone Star, for an example. There's quite a number of them. But these big companies are driving significant transactions globally, and really the private equity business is continuing to grow. It's been around quite a long time, but it's continuing to grow, and it's growing globally. And there's a lot of opportunities especially for people who really understand from the bottom up how a private equity fund works and how they're structured. So the question I get asked a lot is, now a good time to get into private equity? And I would say yes. Of course, it depends on where you're based and where you're living. I think for people such as yourselves based in India, it's a huge opportunity. Again, there are private equity funds based in India, but a lot of the work is getting done to support funds globally. And we've seen a lot of people, there's a lot of people that, depending on visas and opportunities, that they can grow and move to other countries. And in Dubai, for example, you see a lot of people of Indian descent in the asset management and wealth management space, and private equity is taking a big component of that. There's a big demand right now, what we call private credit. It's basically lending money instead of going to the traditional banks, lending money at attractive rates, especially for people who have difficulty borrowing money because they don't have great credit. And Mahila Money knows, is front and center in that in the consumer space. But in private equity, it's institutional players, basically. The world markets are getting a little more volatile right now. It's hard to say if there's going to be any sort of correction. But even if there's a correction, there are private equity funds that take advantage of those opportunities. They like to buy distressed assets. They like to buy non-performing loans. So private equity is pervasive in good markets and in bad markets. So I think, I certainly think in India, having this knowledge and what we teach, and this is the important thing, what we teach is practical knowledge. It's not things you can read in a book. The people, we have 12 modules in our private equity learning pathway, and basically all of the modules are taught by people in the industry. There's no theory. It's not taught by an academic. It's taught by people who on Monday morning, they go back to work, and they go back to work in the job in private equity. So that's very important. You're learning from the experts. You're learning from people who do this for a living. So, and that practical knowledge can be very useful in helping you find jobs, helping you find opportunities. Networking is a big component of what we do. We have online networking. We have in-person networking. We do cocktails. We haven't done one in India, Anna, right? Mumbai or Delhi. We haven't done, but maybe we can do that if we get a bunch of people interested. But networking globally is really important for you to make opportunities. We're big users of LinkedIn and things like that. Why does somebody want to go into PE? Well, the easy thing is to make money. That's what some people say. They want to make money. Private equity, you have an opportunity if you get it right and you're a good investor to do well. But it's also some of the best and brightest, some of the sharpest minds are, and I'm not saying me, by the way, I'm saying some of the sharpest minds are in private equity. They really are excellent at the specific role that they play. And I'm going to get into what the different roles are in a couple of minutes. And so getting into PE, it's challenging to get in. When we think of private equity, we think, Ann and I and others always think of the sell side versus the buy side. The buy side is the investors. They're the ones that manage the money. The private equity firms, the hedge funds, well, let's talk about private equity. That's what we call the buy side. And there's many, hundreds of billions of dollars, if not more, focus in private equity in the buy side. But there's a lot of service providers that are providing services like legal, tax, audit, compliance, fund administration, risk management, operations. There's so many different facets of how, to support and work and service people at the buy side or people in private equity. So that's what we call the sell side. And a lot of people start off in operations or in the sell side providing a particular service, and then sometimes they move into the buy side. I worked with Anna. We worked at Citi for many years. We did fund administration. We helped hedge funds manage their accounting and their back office. We did that. We set up a company together. And then now, we're educating people, but now my day job, besides IPI, is at Lone Star Funds. And I'm now on the buy side, right? But the only way I can get to the buy side was having that knowledge, having that expertise. And I'm the chief operating officer, which means I handle all of operations and administration for our fund. And our fund, we've raised $95 billion over the years. We've invested $240 billion US over the years. So But the point is, I got my background and the knowledge and expertise from working on the sell side. And a lot of people who take our program or learning pathway and they sign up for it, they have goals in mind. They want to work on the buy side. We had a number of women, actually, I could think of 3 or 4 that they lived in Hong Kong. They wanted to become a COO, a chief operating officer for their fund. And they took our course because it rounded them out. They were just in operations or they were legal or tax. And then they end up getting jobs as chief operating officers. So that makes us, really happy. So the other thing is are you a good fit for private equity? And could be how, and I'll talk a little bit about your personality, could talk about what your strengths are and weaknesses. For example, if you're really not great at math, that kind of limits some of the jobs, some of the opportunities. Math is for finance, it's like butter for bread. You really need math for, for most of the jobs in finance. So if somebody's really not, you don't need to be a quant. You don't need to be financial modeling extraordinaire, but, understanding math and really using math, in finance is somewhat critical. So if someone says, well, I want to be in finance, but I'm terrible at math, it's probably not going to be a good fit. But there are jobs where, for example, you could have your relationships. If you're very good at networking and you have relationships, that could be leveraged. Research. There's plenty of opportunities and we'll talk about some of them in private equity on the buy side and the sell side. But you really have to think about, is it a good fit? When we talk about public markets, the markets are moving really fast. You buy something, you sell something. So someone who's not, if they're working for a hedge fund or they're working for public markets, if you're not really good at thinking on your feet or quick, you're probably not going to be suited well for a hedge fund. But private equity is much longer duration. We don't do deals in seconds. We do deals in weeks and months. So if you're someone who's very analytical, but you're not really good with pressure, not really good at that suits well for private equity, because private equity doesn't happen, as quick. Now, you don't have to have a passion for private equity. And a lot of people make a mistake that they confuse passion for their work, their job, right? I'm passionate about I play the mandolin. I'm passionate about it, but it's not my job. I would be poor if it was my job, So, a lot of people, they want to make their passion their career, right? And it's very hard to be very successful at something you're super passionate about. Baseball players, they get lucky. Sometimes musicians, definitely musicians, you can do that, some of the professional musicians. But in order to be successful, it's not just having the passion, it's really having education and then expertise and applying that expertise with hard work, right? That gives you a much better chance for success. So I tell people, there's a lot of people, Uni is an exception. She's passionate about, environment, and she's passionate about ESG, and she got into that role and has done amazing and is doing amazing things. That doesn't always happen, right? So, but education, understanding whatever job you're going to be in, and then applying that expertise, that's really important. So I wish everybody well. If you're super passionate about private equity, then you come to the right place. So, and I love private equity, don't get me wrong, but it's, I always tell people, don't confuse your passion or your hobbies. Doesn't have to be your job, so to speak. If I talk about how a private equity company is set up, then I'm going to go quickly for the next 5 minutes, and then I'm going to hand it over. But basically, there's 4 or 5 different roles. And again, they all take different things. So the first is, if you're in private equity, is origination. It's finding deals, finding transactions. So to be a deal sourcer or an originator, you need to have relationships. You have to have a very good network. So basically, if you want to buy a company, let's say in in the telecom industry, you need to have friends and relationships in telecom. And they'll call you and say, hey, this company's going to be up for sale, or this company may be divesting, one of their assets. That the best originators are the people that have that network. So a lot of times originators are the older people in the business, the people who have been around doing it a long time. But you need those relationships. If you're very good at keeping relationships and networking, origination is a good longer-term career, but you're probably going to start with underwriting or asset management or things like that. Now I'll get into underwriting. Underwriting, if an originator sees a transaction, sees a company that they want to buy, let's say it's a telecom company, then the underwriters do all the work. They do the financial modeling, they look at comparisons, they do all the research, they do all the analytics, they hire the consultants, the lawyers, the PwCs, people like that to do the financial modeling, legal, tax, audit, all of those things go into underwriting. So if you're very good at math, very good at analytics, very good at quantitative analysis, then underwriting is a great path. Asset management is once you buy the deal, then how do you monetize? How do you make more money from that asset before you exit, before you sell it? So asset management is really, you have to be an expert in that industry. If it's shipping, if it's real estate, if it's chemicals or energy, whatever it is, you need to be an expert on how those companies operate so you can, really manage that asset well. And the last two are investor relations and capital raising. Okay, so the investor relations are the people who go out and speak to the limited partners. Okay, and the limited partners are the ones who put the money into the private equity. If you own the private equity company, you're what's called the GP, the general partner, right? And that general partner is driving the bus. You find the investment, you do the analysis, you do the all the due diligence, and then the LPs are lending you the money to do that. Okay, so limited partners are endowments, they're sovereign wealth funds, they're high net worth individuals, people like that, but they're giving you their money to invest alongside with you. Okay, and that's what a limited partner is versus general partner. A general partner gets paid fees to manage the fund, to manage those investments to hopefully a positive conclusion. So their investor relations and capital raising, they're typically called an IR or investor relations. Those are the people that go out and raise the money. They go to the sovereign wealth funds and the endowments, and they go and they say, we're launching a new fund. We'd like you to invest with us. And this is the returns we're hoping for. This is the type of assets we're going to buy. This is the type of risk we're going to take, and this is the location that we're going to buy some of these assets. And then once the LPs, the limited partners, come in and invest in the fund, those IR people, investor relations, they're your account manager, effectively. They are responsible every quarter to give you the report. How are the assets doing? What do you have any questions about the portfolio? They look at the analytics. They keep you apprised. So that job is less mathematically difficult than, for example, an underwriter. The underwriter is doing all the financial analysis and due diligence, but you really need to understand, to be a very good investor relations person, you really need to understand the language of private equity. Every different asset class has its own language. IRR, internal rate of return, or CRM, cash return multiple, or there's a little acronyms in everything that you need to understand the language and what people care about when they're investing in private equity, right? So the investor relations people are very, they're quantitative, but they're not sitting all day behind a spreadsheet. They're out using their personality, talking to investors. So if you're someone who likes to be out talking to people and explaining the business, then investor relations and capital raising is quite interesting. Then there's a whole bunch of a whole other bucket, which I'll call operations and administration. That's what I run as a COO for a private equity fund. That's my role. And that encompasses everything such as legal, tax, audit, human resources, operations, reporting, putting all the analytics together for the investor relations people and the LPs, and treasury, hedging, all of the things you need to do to manage the business, manage the fund. That's something that's done in operations and administration. And those people, they don't sit inside the fund. Inside the fund is just the asset. They sit in the general partner. They sit in the GP, the asset management company, and the GP gets paid, for that, to be that, to hire those asset managers. So there's a lot of complexity, and there's a lot of opportunity, particularly. And that's what we teach in our program, a lot of opportunity in those spaces. All of the ones I mentioned, legal, tax, audit, HR, fund administration, those are all external providers such as Ernst & Young or EY or PwC or the big law firms or the big fund administrators such as SS&C and others. And a lot of these Apex, a lot of them have operation centers in India. Right, a lot. As we was talking before, there's quite a number of private equity operation centers, and there's a career path, definitely a career path to be on the sell side or service provider for funds, and do quite well. So it's not so when we talk about sell side and buy side, there's career paths in both, and they could both be significant. Anna and I, have both, been on the sell side for most of our career, and working with some, really great people globally, and so there's opportunities for, for people for people on both sell side and buy side. Now, because we have a lot of women on the phone, I'm going to talk about it. Women in finance, and Anna has set up groups in Japan and in Asia, women in finance, where how do we promote more women in finance? So I looked it up. I looked it up earlier. There's 48% of entry-level jobs are for females. 48%. So it's pretty close for entry-level jobs. But then as it gets more senior, men start to outweigh significantly. And when you get up to very senior people, 10% of the senior executives are women. And that's wrong, right? I'll be the first to say it. It's wrong. But the, finances, there's a lot of industries like that. But what I find in India, it's not as much like that. India has a lot of senior women in finance. So does Malaysia. Malaysia, the governor of the central bank was women. There's certain countries that are, much like I'm living in Japan. I hate to say it, but Japan is more male focused. A lot of women at the lower levels, not at the higher levels. But I think, India, Malaysia, certainly even Singapore and other places, you see a lot of, and even Hong Kong and others, you see a lot of women rising up the ranks, and as they should. So I think it's part of all of our jobs, and men included, is to try to raise awareness. The best way to do that is education. The best way to do that is for really that learning and understanding how funds work and the practical knowledge that goes along with it. So that's what we want to do. We want to help. We want to help. And Mahila Money and the team have been great because they understand what we're trying to do. They're empowering women at the level for micro funding and this and that, which is fantastic. And so knowledge to us, knowledge is in education has to be applicable. It has to be something that you can leverage, right? Learning the history of private equity, or we don't really care about that. Learning, the theory behind it, it's interesting, but it's not going to help you in your day-to-day job, right? And what we offer, our courses are basically there to help you in your day-to-day job. So, Anna, I may have left a bunch of things out. I'm going to stop there and turn over to you and then go from there. So,
Oh, great. Thank you, Steve. That was really interesting. And I want to emphasize a couple of points here. One is that you talked about the job types, the skills that are required, but also the personalities. And I have experience of this. I wanted to stay in Japan. The role I went to Japan to do had finished. I wanted to stay. There weren't that many opportunities available to expats in Japan, but one of them was operational risk management. And I was perfectly suited for this job. I had all of the skills required. I worked in so many different areas, and I knew when people were lying to me. It was perfect. But I made a crucial mistake. I actually had completely the wrong personality for this job. I am a decision maker. It's what I do. It's what I do really well. Risk management is not about that. Risk management is about analysis and tracking and spotting patterns and trends. And we once had somebody who taught risk management for us, and he said risk management is all about doing nothing for 364 days a year and then really nailing it on the one day a year when things go horribly wrong. And it was just completely wrong for me. So I was okay, I did all right, but it wasn't the right job for me. So I would highly recommend everybody, when you're thinking about careers and roles, don't just focus on your skills, think about you and what makes you happy and what you're good at, which may not be the same thing, frankly. The other thing is that I was, when I was in New York, I was working in the back office, so in the operations world, supporting the custody business. And again, I understood all about what was happening in the operations world, and I also had an interest in what the business was trying to do. Why was the business there? I wasn't just doing my job in the back office. I was interested, and I was given a role where my job was to liaise with the front office, so the salespeople, the people creating the product, because I knew what was happening in the back, and that turned into the front office offering me a job. So that was the point at which I went from being back office to front office. And for those people who are thinking, I really want to be in the front office, I really want to be in investment management, you don't have to go straight in there. You can go, as we've been saying, build a career in one of the other roles and then move into the investment side. Or, these things are possible. Having said that, so that's some of my career experiences. I want to hand over to Uni for her career experiences, specifically because she is a very senior woman running a company in private equity. So Uni, please, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna and Steve. So, and thank you for having me tonight. Yeah, to share my journey a little bit. So, just a quick introduction. So, my name is Yooni. I'm originally from Korea. I've been working in finance and investment industry about 20 years now. I was in Hong Kong around 15 years. That's where I met Steve and Anna. And I moved to Indonesia about 1.5 years ago to focus on my new career. So currently, I'm the co-founder and head of investments at Teratai. And as Anna mentioned, we focus on supporting early stage nature positive businesses with early stage capital and hands-on venture building services. So I just want to share a little bit about my career journey and what worked well for me in making some of the career transitions and also some of the challenges I faced during my journey. So, yeah, my sort of career journey is a little bit unusual. So I started out as an equity analyst, quite mainstream career. So I started out in Seoul and then quickly moved to Hong Kong and started to cover the regional market. So I did that about 7 years, and first 4 or 5 years I was actually really enjoying that job. So company analysis, traveling to interesting places, and as a young individual, I also had opportunities to directly meet with the senior management, which was a quite great opportunity for me. But towards the end of the career, I was actually personally really struggling because I didn't really see the deep purpose of my work. And yeah, I'm the person, I guess I'm really driven by the purpose and meaning of the work. And that time, it was around 2013, I discovered impact investing. I I was lucky to attend a presentation by Jacqueline Novogratz, who's the founder of Acumen, which is a pioneering impact investing organization based in the US. And after that, basically presentation, I decided to really transition my career into impact investing and then private market because I thought I realized that is the additionality of the impact is much deeper in the private equity space because in the public equity, you are mainly buying and selling shares of the listed big companies. But in the private equity, you actually get to choose the companies and they inject capital directly to grow the companies or turn around the company. So that was my goal at the time around 12 years ago. But at that time, impact investing industry was at a very nascent stage in Asia. So I decided to go to the US and actually do an MBA to learn a lot more about impact investing and private equity and then private market investing. And I did that. And after MBA, I started to work at a private equity firm, impact driven, investing into Southeast Asia and apparel supply chain industry, trying to improve the social and environmental practices of garment and textile companies. And I did that about 3 to 4 years. And then I actually worked for a private equity, I worked for a family office based in Hong Kong. And I managed a 100% sustainably invested portfolio about 6 years. So yeah, I think I cover sort of different roles within the private equity as the private equity manager GP side and also the LP side. And towards the end of my time at the family office, I basically started to incubate a new company, now became Teratai with my partner. And we successfully launched it about 2 years ago. And now Teratai is an independent organization. So I think it's a little bit unusual journey because most people actually don't make the transition from the public equity to private equity and I guess again to a sort of startup founder. So during my journey, what worked really well for me in making some career transition is first being really proactive. So when I left the equity analyst job and when I was going to preparing to go to the business school in the US, in my farewell email to my colleagues and also the stakeholders externally, I actually specifically wrote in the email that I'm going to actually move to transition into impact investing private market space. If you know anyone in your network, please let me know. And then from that email, actually, a few helpful connections came through. And also, I was going to different events, conferences, and then reaching out to people on LinkedIn. And personally, I believe that making the successful career transition sometimes is about meeting 2, 3 really right people. So if you meet yeah very well connected, very senior, experienced people in that industry and then make the right impression, so then the doors start to open to you, and also you can really get advice from them. Yeah, about application process or different opportunities. So being proactive is really, really important. And actually, that's also related to how I got my first role within the private equity firm. So I met the founder at a conference. So he was presenting about his company. And then I loved the investment thesis because as an equity analyst, I used to cover consumer sector and I went to a lot of different factories, like garment factories, textile factories, or accessories factories. And I really saw poor working conditions, both social, in terms of social practices and environmental practices. But I was really frustrated because I could not really do anything as a public equity analyst. But then the private equity firm was actually doing actively investing to change the practices within these factories. So I was really impressed by the approach. So I basically wrote to the founder right after the the event, and then I really wrote down why I loved their investment thesis and model, and then what I could do for them. So I really wrote down like I have this skill, I have this network, I would love to do something. So I started as an unpaid intern, so for unpaid part-time, and then I did that about a few months, and then but when the official role opened in Hong Kong, full-time role opened, obviously I was the first one to be considered. So I went through some interviews, but yeah, basically that was the first role within the private equity. And also the family office role I got was also through the network. So yeah, I think it's very different from the career working for big corporates or even public equity sort of asset managers. I think private market is really all about building the network, meeting the right people, and making the right impressions. And then it is also okay if you don't have any network at the moment, it's really about reaching out. So before I successfully transition, I would even go to the conferences on my own and trying to meet people. So yeah, I think every step counts as long as you're in the right direction. Um, so in terms of challenges, I think sometimes it's not very straightforward to make the career change. So there will be some difficult moments. Sometimes maybe you cannot build a network as quickly as you thought, or maybe you reach out to a lot of people, not many people get back to you. So that's also possible. Or maybe sometimes you don't feel really confident about making the change. That's all okay. But I think it's really having the long-term vision and then really continuously making the right efforts. So when I made the last transition from the family office to Teratai, I actually had to do two jobs for 1.5 years while building Teratai. So I was still doing the family office role, and then I was able to transition out fully after I hired my replacement and train that person. So it was quite difficult time for me because I was going through quite a lot in terms of personal transition and family health as well. But then, yeah, I think going back, it was all worth it, I would say. And yeah, and then Anna also asked me to talk a little bit about working in the private equity space as a woman. So I would say that yeah, still we are the minority. There are not many women working in the private equity space. So yeah, it was very common. Like when I go to big meetings, there might be 10 to 15 people in the meeting, and I was the only female participant. um, Very common. Or to be honest, that was like 10 years ago. So there will be some people like making inappropriate jokes. So that also happened. But then I think now that's getting a little bit less common, which is a good thing. Um, and sometimes in terms of sourcing investment opportunities, sometimes, obviously, men may have stronger networks. So that could be a little bit of challenge, but then still, I think, yeah, as I said, like you also have the power to build your own network. So I think as long as you make that effort, I don't think that's the big barrier. So I think and then I think as a woman, I think we also have our own strengths. Like sometimes we can be more detail oriented, or we can bring different perspectives, or we might be more familiar with certain industries, right? So I think we can also bring a lot of strengths to our role. So yeah, I think that's a little bit about my sharing. So I think yeah, what's interesting is that I really followed my heart in my career journey, and sometimes I did have like like salary cut because I was sort of starting new, and then there were difficult moments, but then yeah, I do have a belief personally that yeah, if there is something that you are really passionate about, and that if you're really focused on um, getting there and making that work, putting consistent efforts, I believe you can get there. So yeah, we sing all the best for everyone, and I look forward to seeing some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Uni. That's so, I think your journey is so inspiring. And it's really great that you've talked about being focused and, you know, following your passion and making it happen. You have to be active if you want to make the career that you want. I'm going to throw out there one networking tip. It's difficult to network as a woman, I always find. I'm only 5 feet tall. The first thing I do when I walk into a networking group on my own is I look for people who are my height. It makes it so much easier to start. So I'll generally look for a group of 2 or 3 women, and I'll go up to them and I'll say, look, I don't know anybody here. Can I join you? And I've never had anybody say, no, go away. So it's a good way to kind of work your way in. I would never start with Steve, who is 6 foot something. It's impossible, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's good. That's good strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it works with men as well. If you can find short men, Japan was much easier, I have to say, than anywhere else.
Yeah,
Right, we have 15 minutes left.
Well,
so
I just
gonna,
wanted to add one comment, and Uni, that was great. And it's just to wrap everything up, is you could be the best at anything, cricket. You could be the best cricket player in the world, but if no one ever sees you play, you're not going to be a professional cricket player, right? So you have to be out there. You mentioned she wasn't afraid to go. You go to seminars, you go to conferences, you meet people. LinkedIn, we use LinkedIn a lot. If you connect with us, I even wrote an article how to use LinkedIn. But you have to be out there because, again, if no one knows you're there, no one's going to see you. You're going to miss opportunities. So.
Yeah. Right. Well, so we have 50 minutes left. People have been asking about the course, the program. I'm going to show everybody one slide, just very quickly talk about the structure. This is something we can send afterwards, so we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about it now, and then we can go on to Q&A. So 2 minutes. Let me share this slide, which I now can't see. Oh, it always goes wrong, doesn't it, at the last minute? Share Microsoft PowerPoint. There we go. Right, so I hope everybody can now see this screen with the private equity learning pathway on it. So very quickly, Steve's already talked about this in some detail. So we have 12 units covering lots of different aspects of private equities. Generally speaking, I think people think about 6, 7, and 8 on here. That's sort of this is the image we have of private equity people, but you will see that there are many other aspects. Risk management, as I've said, that's basically foreign exchange risk management in the context of private equity, and interest rate management. It's very different and a different skill set, a different personality set. But you know, if that's what you do, that's a very interesting angle. Business management obviously is more the kind of stuff that Steve does. Governance and compliance and legal, so number 3 and number 11, very good if you have a legal background. This is a way to break into the private equity world if you've come up with a legal background. So that's what we talk about. How does it work? Each unit includes recorded lectures by industry experts. So these are people who've done it, they've lived it, they're still living it and breathing it, and they are talking about their experiences as well as, you know, the fundamentals. It's not academic, it's practical. Built into that is interactive reading materials. So you click, you go away, you read something, you come back, and we check your knowledge at after each unit. Average unit length, 2 to 3 hours. If you know something pretty well, you'll do it quicker. If you're completely new to it, then it'll take you some more time to get to grips with the concepts and so on. So, but on average, 2 to 3 hours. So about a 24 to 36 hour course. And the reason it's called a learning pathway and not a course is because each unit is designed so you can take just the one unit. If you have a background but you're thinking about getting into capital raising and investor relations, but you don't know much about that, you can just take that unit, it'll stand alone. But as a complete course, and for each unit that you take, you get a badge, you get a digital badge, which you can put on LinkedIn, which, as we've talked about, is important. You can put it out there and demonstrate your knowledge. But if you take the whole pathway, then you'll get a certificate from us as well, which you can also post to LinkedIn. Who's it good for? Well, you can see here. I mean, it's good for people who are already in private equity but don't know about these other jobs. So if you want to become a COO like Steve, you're going to need to know about all these bits. So if you only have expertise in one of them, it's good to expand your understanding. People coming in from other finance areas, it is not the same as being a broker-dealer. You have some transferable skills, but this will help you understand what they might be. Early career individuals and interns, certainly the first module, which gives you a very comprehensive understanding of the area, and then you can, as you build your knowledge, take the rest of them. Service providers who are, I don't know, you're working in a fund administrator and you don't really understand your client. This will help you to understand your client better and potentially help you to move into that world. And then investors, of course, we have, family offices invest in private equity, but they don't know what they're investing in really. So this also helps people who are investing in these funds to understand what on earth is going on and who's important and what are they doing. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to stop sharing now and hand over to the SHEROES team to take us through some Q&A.
Thanks, Anna. We have some interesting questions that have come up, and I'm going to share one by one. So the first one we have from Vandana. She says, hello, this session is very insightful. Wanted to know, how is this course structured? After completion, how do I get into the PE industry? You've pretty much covered that, Anna, but if you would want to add some more.
Yeah, I think the big question there is afterwards, how do I get into the PE industry? I mean, it's not like a miracle occurs. What this program gives you is it gives you the vocabulary, it gives you the language to talk to people in the industry, and it gives you an understanding, much more holistic understanding than most people have when they're trying to get into the industry. And those two things help you with the networking that Uni and Steve have been talking about. I can see Steve wants to come in.
Yeah, no, I was saying the networking, exactly. We have many people have taken the course, 25 different countries, and the reaching out to people through LinkedIn, through us. If you go visit a country or you want to meet other people that have taken it in your country, we can make those connections. So, networking is a critical part, but being out there and then using that newfound knowledge, it's a language, like learning French or Spanish, using that language to go in and hopefully compete for a job at a higher level.
All right. Our next question is from Pallavi. What transferable skills matter most for moving into private equity?
Now let Steve and Uni probably have some insights into what skills have been helpful.
I think
Steve, you're
on mute.
Yeah. So again, for different roles, there's different skills, right? But I think the people that I know that are really strong in private equity, that I look up to in the industry over the years, they have very good networks. They get information, right? Information. I always say you need three things to be successful in finance. You need information that's quick, accurate, legal, okay? And then the way to get that information is through your network. And then you need the expertise to monetize that information, right? If you get information on a deal or something and it's legal, but you don't know what to do, should you buy the stock? You invest in the bonds? There's many different paths. So I think building your network, having those relationships, I think is key. Again, I mentioned math. I think math is very important for some of the jobs like underwriting, things like that. We talked about, I think Anna touched on, like, for example, if you're not good at public speaking, then being a salesperson or the investor relations. Now you could fix that, right? You could take a course and you could fix that. But there are some things, if you're not good in math by the time you're 20, 25, you're probably not going to be great in math going forward. But public speaking, things like that, you can fix. So every job has its little nuance, but I think the last thing I would say is be able to handle multiple things at the same time. I have a twin brother, and he's a doctor. He's very good at, dealing with one patient at one time and then moving on. He can't do a lot of different things at once, which in finance we all need to learn how to do in some way, shape, or form.
All right, thanks, Steve. There's another question which is pretty interesting from Tulika. She says, what's one step I can take right after this webinar to move closer to a PE role?
Well, I mean, first I would say is take the course, right? Because then you're going to immerse yourself um, with the knowledge, and you'll have that. And then the second step, and I'm very happy to do another session um, with you guys, but about how to use LinkedIn, how to find, how to reach out to people, how to network, how to reach out to people in the PE industry in the right way, where you could go say, okay, and we do that for people who take the course. We could set up a different dates for people to come in, but knowledge is powerful, but not if it's not used to execute an opportunity, if it doesn't help you. So getting the knowledge and then having the ability to network and talk to people about with your newfound knowledge, I think those are the two first steps. So.
All right. There's another question from Sneha. What percentage of PE professionals successfully transition to operating roles like portfolio company, CFO, or CEO, or start their own funds?
I saw that question. It's very hard to give a number, right? It's like how long is a piece of string, right? It's very, there's no statistics that says 10% or 11% of people move into roles. It's very personal and it's very specific. I work at a company, Lone Star Funds, and we have an asset management subsidiary, Hudson Advisors. And we've had people in our company that have been there 28 years, 23 years, 25 years, and they move up in different roles. But it's hard to put a percentage on it. If you go, from sell side to buy side, it's possible, but it can take. I think what I would say is if you have the expertise in your network, those chances grow greatly. But it's very hard to put a specific number on that.
So I'd like to ask Uni. Uni, you did make that leap from working in private equity to starting your own fund. How many other people have you met who are like you, who've done the same thing?
So I think, sorry, I think he,
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
okay. So in terms of the transition, usually private equity professionals join established companies. So they become like CEO or COO of their portfolio company, but usually quite sizable. So starting a new venture startup is a quite rare thing, I would say. But yeah, definitely possible.
Okay.
Okay, here's another one from Vedika. Uh, how can how can completing a private equity course enhance the skills and effectiveness of a professional working in a family office, particularly in managing investments and financial operations unique to high net worth families?
Anna, you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. As you know, we have a family office program as well, which does basically the same thing and explains how family offices work, which is even less well known than how private equity works. I think if you're in a family office, well, Uni, you should chip in here as well. If you're in a family office and you're managing private equity investments, then as I mentioned, this is good for investors because it gives you the understanding of exactly what it is that you've put your money into and what the different moving parts are, and who you need to be sure is competent. I think, if you're investing in private equity, there's a whole bunch of people, all of whom have to be really competent, differently from investing in, ordinary equities on the stock market. So this helps you to understand who they are and what they're doing. Uni, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, I think you covered the key points. So the first thing is that you'll be able to evaluate the fund managers better because you have all the knowledge and then you have all the vocabulary. So yeah, that's about sourcing, evaluating, but also yeah, monitoring the fund's performance, right? And you will have much better understanding about how to evaluate their performance and also compare that to peers or other similar funds. So yeah, I think the private equity vocabulary can be quite specific. So there are a lot of industry jargon. So yeah, really understanding that, and then also knowing what are the best practices. So I think if you attend the course, you will also hear from the experienced experts in different segments. So you will sort of know what the best in class sort of standards are for the industry.
Right. Now, we are all very curious to know what are your plans for India, because this is probably one region you haven't stepped into. So, what are your thoughts, or what are your plans? A little insight, if you could share with us. Can't hear you, Steve.
You mean our plans for IPI in India? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, I think the biggest opportunity, I mean, I've never met people in the world, and I've traveled to many, many countries who are more passionate about education than the people in India. Okay, it is one of the staples of every household, right? And you can see it where India exports so much talent globally, big jobs in many different industries, many different countries. So I think for us, we've always had this, great relationship. I think if you look at nationalities, we have more people of Indian descent that have taken our courses than others, And so we would love to be more involved in India. I was just with a group of a private equity firm. It's about 300 million. They're Indian. They're India based. They're called Cornerstone. And they said, "When are you coming?" And I said, I was telling them about this seminar, and I said, "Well, if it goes well, which I think it did, thank you very much for your help. That we'll do a networking event we'll do one in Mumbai probably, and and then we'll have a bunch of our friends come, and you can meet and network with people in the VC space. There's some questions here. How do I get in?" Well, we can set up with Mahila Money, we could set up a networking event very easily in Mumbai and in Delhi and other places where we get people to come in, people in the industry on the sell side, people in this industry on the buy side, and people like yourselves that may want to educate and get in the industry and network, and we do it over drinks, and we've had a lot of success with that. We've done them. We're now in probably 6, 7 different countries. So I'd love to do that in India too.
Awesome. That's great to know. Thank you so much for this. Do we have any more questions? If I could you check, please? We have one question from Jagriti. For someone who isn't sure whether they fit better in investment roles versus portfolio operations or IR, how do you recommend figuring out the right path?
Okay, so I'll answer that if you don't mind, because I spend this time a lot, and I think what I recommend to people is to take a piece of paper and fold it, and the left side is positive, the right side is negative. What are you good at? Is a positive. What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? And then the right side is negative. What are you not good at? Again, I mentioned if you're not good at math, it's going to be challenging to get a meaningful role in private equity, right? If you're not good at public speaking, you can fix that. So you can move some things from the negative to the positive, but some things you may say, I don't want to work in Hong Kong, right? So I never want to work in Hong Kong. That's a negative. You want to say, I want to work in ESG, or you want to work in certain markets, and you put that on the positive side. But then you look at your skills and you look at your weaknesses. You say, what role? And ChatGPT can help. There's Myers-Briggs. There's these things you could take. But what am I suited for, right? If I've had a lot of friends that went into the wrong industry just for the money. They think, okay, this industry, they make a lot of money. I go in, and the one thing I would say is if you go into something just for the money, it's usually you don't usually do as well. Passion, I think it's great to have it. I said before, you don't necessarily need it to be successful, but if you have it, like you need, when I watch Otani, the baseball player from Japan, he got paid $700 million. He would play for free. You watch him when he's in the dugout, when he's getting up, he loves it. He loves that place. So you can't teach that, right? So if you are really passionate about a certain thing or industry, this and that, you should definitely use that. But yeah, you want to leverage it. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just throw in here that this happened to me. So after that job that I did that wasn't the right job that I talked about, I took a personality test called the Strengths Finder. And the results, I was, I don't know, how old, 45 or something when I did this. And I had a good career at Citibank and before. And I got the results back on what were my strengths. And I was mortified. I couldn't show it to my boss or to my husband because I'd always sold my career as being a fixer. I'm good at projecty stuff and making things happen. Steve will recognize this, right? This is what I've built my career on. And this thing told me that I should be working with people. I'm really good at empathy and I should be doing that kind of stuff. And it blew my mind. I had no idea. And then the next job I looked for, I took that into account and I got the job of regional head of client services in custody and clearing for Citi. And what that gave me was the clients come in. It turns out I'm really good with clients. I didn't know that, you know, and they have a problem, and then I go fix it for them, and that's the fixing bit. And so it just brought together these two parts, and I loved that job. It was the best job I ever had, and I got it through networking with women. I called every woman I knew that might have an influence on this job, and I said, I want this job. Help me get this job. And they did. They came together and they got me that job. So just saying.
That's perfect. That's a great story. I don't know if we're running over time, but
yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to throw
really
that.
appreciate you guys have done a great job. Thank you and thank everyone for staying on the phone and joining. You know, we'd love to hopefully work with you, you know, on your career journey, you know, through education, through networking, LinkedIn. You could reach out to us, and yeah, it's been great.
Thank you, Steve. Just before, I add my thanks, this is for all the audience here. Please reach out to care@sheroes.in, or you could call us at 89812052226. For more details on how to enroll for the course, you'll find all these details in the chat section. And thank you so much, Steve, Anna, and Uni. Thanks to all three of you. That was very honest, insightful, and exactly the kind of clarity, women very rarely get access to. So immensely proud that we could host this session, and thank you so much. For the audience, what can I say? It's been a very powerful conversation. Thanks for being here. Thanks for asking all your thoughtful questions and showing up for your own growth. If today's session opened the door for you, even a small one, we encourage you to keep exploring. Leadership in investing needs more women, not someday, but now. Now, for those who want to go deeper, we'll share the recording, the post-webinar read-up, along with the interest form, plus details on the IPI's private equity learning pathway. A huge thank you to you, Anna, Steve, and Uni, for being so generous with your insights, and to all of you, wonderful audience, for being with us for over an hour. Let's keep building more pathways for women to lead in global finance. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week ahead. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.